or at least handling the conversation on what kind of podcast worry, I think we called it. So I turn it over to you, John. The floor is yours, brother.
Great. Well, I would love to pontificate for several hours, but this is going to be give and take. Okay. Rob's not going to let me pontificate, so I'll have to take and exchange. Now, we talked about topics, and Rob said, well, what about stress? And I came up with, in fact, I just emailed Rob some numbers that might be helpful for you. And I talked to a lot of podcasters, and I always say, well, geez, Alex, how's it going? Great. How many downloads you have for your podcast? X amount. And he goes, would you like more? Yeah. Okay. Would you like to get paid for it? Yeah. And so it's like the conversation's it's in the background there. It's like that. It's like the books in my background here. It's like, well, yeah, well, how many, and what's normal? Well, compared to what? Well, Alex, what'd you do? I had 800. Oh, is that good? Well, I don't know. Rob had 10,000. Oh, well, Marilyn had 40,000. I mean, people don't know where they rank. And I thought I'd come up with some numbers first for you. And then I'd work this conversation around to how you can get paid. I mean, I think that's what everyone wants. So the numbers are, I don't know if Rob can send these out.
Want me to share the numbers with him?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on 1 second, John. Got it.
Okay. Well, there's a company called Libsyn, Libsyn. I'm the grizzled veteran. Well, they're the grizzled veteran of, podcast hosts. And there's a guy named Rob Walsh. He's very well known in the business. And once a month, he comes up with these magic numbers. And, it's kind of good. And I don't know if you know these numbers or not. Some people know, some they don't. What they say is that, so I think Alex is about to launch a podcast. So let's say it's 6 months from now, and he tries to figure out, where he stands. And so according to the folks at Libsyn, if they don't look at the total aggregate number of downloads, they look at, let's say, episode 5 and the first 30 days of its release. Okay, so Rob has an episode about his goldfish, and the first 30 days. Well, how many downloads you get? Well, if Rob got 144 downloads, he's better than half the shows. Okay, and the number here is over 1,200, better than 80%, more than 3,300, more than 90%, more than 7,600, 20,000 better, and more than 36,000 better than 90% of the shows. So when you look at someone like Joe Rogan, who's got, I don't know, gajillions, this is what, normal human beings are. It's like your time in the mile run, it's a normal figure. It's not 4 minutes or something. It's just a normal 6 minutes or 7 minutes. So these are numbers, and just so you can, if you wade into podcasting, you want to know how you stand, this is how you stand now. I'm in the classroom tomorrow night, and my students would tear me apart. Oh, what's this number? What's that number? What about the relevance and statistical variance? And I, go to Libsyn and have that fight with them. I think these are numbers I want to toss out with you. And the reason I start with these numbers is because, okay, so Chad's got a podcast, and it's the Chad podcast about gardening. It's the Chad Gardening Podcast, and he wants to maybe get a sponsor. Oh, so what about the sponsors? And if it's the Chad podcast about gardening and he wants to get sponsors, well, according to the folks at Libsyn, if you get about 5,000, or it's generally speaking what people look for downloads. Now, believe it or not, everyone does want to advertise on Joe Rogan because they can't afford it. You just can't, or any of the big name shows, the NPR shows. However, if you have a very small niche product, and there are many niche products out there, you might want to go, suppose you have some organic Japanese beetle resistant spray. You're not going to go on a big podcast like the NPR, but you want to go on maybe Chad's gardening podcast. And so if you have a small audience, well, you can still might be able to get some advertising. So that's the magic number. Some advertisers want to look for downloads for campaigns. So that's something to consider. So if you're sitting back saying, oh, I don't know, I got 10,000. Oh, how do I rank? Well, you're not too bad. Okay. Well, if you got 800, well, not too bad. So this is just numbers for you. I'm certainly not going to judge. I've had numbers all up and down this chart here. So put this in the back of your mind and think of it. Now, when someone has a gardening podcast, they would like to get paid somehow or other. And so what I'm going to do is keeping these numbers in mind. I'm gonna give you some options for trying to get paid for your gardening podcast or your bowling podcast or whatever. I deal mostly with business to business podcasts, and I seem to know a little bit about technology, so I tend towards that area. So Rob, we making good progress here?
Excellent.
Good.
You want me to stop the share?
No. Oh yeah, let's stop the share because yeah, you can stop the share. Yeah, we just go back to regular face.
Sure, let's get a look at you.
Look at this. I should see this one, David Huff. Okay, so this is opening up the kimono. This is showing you how I've done it in the past, and now you can just think, oh, this is one way to do it, another way to do it, this is another way, and this is 50 ways to get to Pittsburgh, and you can go all kinds of ways, and this is just one way to do it. One way that's worked for me is to work with companies, larger companies, and go up to them and go, hey, you should have a podcast, pay me to be the moderator. And they say, why? And generally speaking, if you're dealing with companies, bigger companies, billion-dollar companies and higher, they're interested in increasing reach and improving brand awareness. And so if I'm going to pitch Chad and say, hey, Chad, you should pay me to do a podcast, he's going to say, why? I say, well, podcasts traditionally have increased reach and improved brand awareness for organizations just like yours. Then you come up with all the numbers. And so if you have a podcast and it may have some corporate appeal, I don't know, everyone's got a different podcast. That's one approach that I've used in the past. And it's great. I mean, you show up to the big company, do the podcast, you send them an invoice, you go home. It's good. Now, depending on your topic. Now, Rob has a lot of great topics. He might be able to go to a sales training company and do something like it. But it's one approach that's worked for me. There's a gentleman named earlier in this meetup series named Fred Diamond, and he has a variation on that. And what Fred says is that, I don't want 1 million downloads. I don't want 20,000 downloads. I'm going to use my podcast as a door opener. Oh, what do you mean? So what I'll do is I'll call up Marilyn and go, hey, Marilyn, how's Marilyn software? Great. Okay. Hey, listen, I'm going to come out to your place, record a podcast. We're going to make you famous. Great. Okay. Then he'll come out there, he'll record the podcast, and then he'll turn to Marilyn and go, well, geez, Marilyn, how do you do your sales training? Oh, you don't have any. Well, have you considered maybe the Fred Diamond sales school? And so he uses that as an approach. And so if we went to Fred Diamond, maybe he's getting 20 downloads per show, I don't know, maybe 30, but who cares? If he's making money from it, then not for him. And so if Dave Huff has a podcast and he gets 100 downloads in a month, so John Gilroy goes, yeah, you should have 10,000. I'm fine. I'm making money. And so you have to approach podcasting not as, I want to be just like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, he was a stand-up comedian for like 20 years. I mean, he built a following long before he started his podcast. Then he's podcast for 10 years. So that formula is tough. So that's the corporate way. So the corporate way is you pitch Rob Joel, hey, Rob, or you say, look, Alex, I want to come out and do it. And they can use it. And so there's ways to monetize a podcast, got nothing to do with advertising, nothing to do with downloads. And Fred Diamond, and I can put a link to it. You just type in Fred Diamond podcast and it comes up.
Actually, David put it right in the chat area for us.
Oh, yeah. So I went there yesterday doing show prep and has the same tie in every picture. And I found out he keeps it in his car.
Is it a clip on?
I don't know, but I know what my wife would say. My wife would be shocked. But,
I got a question for you. I want to ask a question, and let's open this up a little bit.
Yeah, that's 1 of 5. That's one.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so Mr. John Gilroy. Let me make my first question is this. I'm a guy who's not necessarily looking to monetize. I'm not obsessed with monetizing my podcast. Got a little Fred Diamond in me of it extends my brand. Yeah. I don't necessarily invite my clients on, although it's funny you mentioned that because I have a client local, I'll leave his name out, and mentioned it, and he fawned all over. He was very excited about it, and I was surprised. But I like the credibility that it brings. I like the fact that it extends my brand. When we first started, I floated the idea, and I've got 2 clients in mind I might be talking about, to put an advertiser on my page and not charge them to advertise, just for the credibility of having an advertiser on the podcast. That's how much I don't really want to obsess on the income being driven by the podcast. My income comes from seminars. My income comes from other areas. This brings that to me. Am I unique? What do you think about that?
So if the focus of the discussion today is coping with podcast stress, then you don't have to beat yourself up because I only had 10,000 downloads. I mean, so that's a great way. It's a redirecting the whole idea of stress. Anyone else want to jump in here about this, stress and downloads and monetization, maybe?
I'm kind of with Rob. I don't do a podcast, but one of the reasons I'm here is because I was thinking about doing a podcast I have a local business directory site, and I was thinking of interviewing local businesses as part of the local directory site. And just like the local directory site, I do not charge people for a listing on there. I do offer premium listings, but it's not something I'm pushing really. And I'm not looking to really monetize the directory itself, but more as a way of building my credibility so that, I do this sort of as a community service. And then, when you give away, then people may come to you for your services aside from that. So that's really kind of the thinking I have about it.
Oh yeah. And Rob is right. Some people that have a microphone in front take the picture. Ooh. I know it's an impressive thing.
Yeah. That kind of a secondary, I just found that I was happy. Let's put it that way. When I'm noticing my clients are reacting to it. Then again, I'm circling back and telling you that's sort of why I did it, which was to, why do we have a website? I don't have an enormous amount of traffic there, but how could I be in business without a website? The credibility of a website, things like that. David works with me on my website, and I have articles written for 13 years. I don't make money on a blog that comes out every 2 weeks, but I extend my brand and tap my customers on the shoulder and remind them that I'm still here and relevant. So, it's funny. We got into it through stress. So I'm not all that stressed out about this, but that's just me. If I could, real fast numbers on books, because I always get to a safe area. I can talk books all day, but I look to John and the rest of you all to teach me about podcasting. Do you know that if you go into Barnes and Noble and you see a business book in particular, and so I know the business side of this, but you see a book physically on the shelves in Barnes and Noble, so that author's kind of made it in a sense. That's not a self-published book. That's a real book, real publisher, and not all real books with real publishers get to Barnes and Noble physically. You look at that book, less than 10% of what you're looking at will sell more than 10,000 copies in the lifetime of that book. And those are the ones that made it into the store. So 90% are going to sell less than 10,000. But again, a lot of authors build credibility, become I look around. Alex seems like a smart guy. Yeah, but he wrote a book on blinds. Oh, he must really know blinds. And so that's what a book does in a sense.
Well, those numbers are similar to the podcast numbers, aren't they?
Is it?
It's a pyramid. Yeah. So don't get stressed out. Don't call suicide hotline. You could be making time. And by the way, you don't have to have a podcast to make money. I know plenty of millionaires out of podcasts. So anyway, if it's you want to stumble. So my second topic is, okay, we got Alex's home decorating podcast, specializing in blinds. Oh yeah.
Man knows his blinds.
Alex, you look like a home decorator. You really do.
You're matching the blinds. That's not can't
match,
be an accident.
Yeah, you got to match everything. Your blinds got to match something. I don't know what, the curtains. I don't know. So how do you find a sponsor? So there you go. That can reduce stress. Well, if your goal is to make money from a podcast, well, maybe you get a sponsor. Yeah. Okay. And so it's got nothing to do with ads. It's got to do with sponsors. And so here's how I've done in the past, just to give you some ideas of finding sponsors, is I look at a business. I deal with a lot of, what's a typical business problem that CEOs in this town have? I know enough of them. Well, one problem they have is recruiting. In this, they can't find people. Okay. So I'm in the classroom and I say, well, what's the problem that my students have? Well, a lot of my students read these things behind me and they wouldn't know to say to anything, Rob. They'd be scared, believe it or not. They don't know humans. And so I said, well, we got students who really never sat down with CEOs. And then we have, CEOs who need to recruit. So how do I solve the problem? Well, I come with a podcast called Students versus Startups, Showdown in the Potomac. And so I said, okay, got this good idea. I had students, I had startups, I could do it easy all day long. But I need a sponsor before I launch. And so I go up to companies and I go, hey there, Chad, what's your big problem? Well, it's meeting students and sponsor the podcast. And so I had this podcast for 2 years. It was sponsored by a company called Human Geo. And it was great. The students got to go face to face. The startups got to get ideas from students, and the sponsor got to meet potential talent. And so problem solution, and the sponsor is going to go for that. If I go to knock on hey, Alex, give me some money. Hit the road, Buster. I say, hey, Alex, I see you got your home decorating business. And, I teach a course at the local decorating store about fashion. And so maybe you could, I don't know, I'm making this up here, but if you get the idea, problem solution, all my problems are technology and businesses. So hard for me to talk about home decorating. So that's a problem solution. I give you another example, problem solution. So 70% of the world's internet traffic goes through Ashburn, Virginia. Wow.
Yeah, I've been to one of the data centers there. They're impressive.
So my thought was, this is perfect. I should have a podcast called Inside Data Centers. So I called up a company. I said, hey, I got this idea. We'll record a podcast inside a data center. We'll call it Inside Data Centers. What do you think? And so a company called Raging Wire said, well, fantastic. And so I would literally go into an audio engineer inside one of these. The security is like I tell you, just eye things. And so you get in there, and it was great. And so the problem was letting people know the positive side of data centers. And we talked to energy consumption and speed and security and all kinds of things. And by the way, all kinds of tax money coming from those data centers, tons of tax money. And we talked about that. And that was a problem solution where they didn't care about 10,000 downloads a month. They didn't care. What they cared about is representing themselves, brand awareness and image to the community and to other vendors as well. And so that's just 2 ideas I had for getting a sponsor for your podcast. So don't stress out. Oh, my name is Rob. I got a puppy dog podcast. I only have 5 downloads. Well, go to the Alpo. Hey, Alpo, how you doing? Hey. So there's ways around it, and you don't have to stress out about downloads, because according to the numbers, it's going to be hard. It's hard to get that 50,000 downloads in the first 30 days. It's hard. And so, so what? Yeah. Right. So what? So that's
art. It's art. That's the way I look at it. We are all producing art. It's our art form, damn it. And, and we have to be true to our art. I have publicists that always criticize my titles, for instance, on my blogs, because I'll write something to me that's just very creative and artistic. And they'll tell, the pursuit of imperfection. I love that particular title. And they say, don't you understand that when you write a title like that, people are going to bypass it. If you write 4 ways to get people to understand you, people will hit your link more often. I don't want to write 4 ways to get people to understand me. That's not that's not a nice piece of art to me. And so don't hit my link in a sense. But I'm coming from a different angle. If all I had was a podcast generating 100% of my income,
right,
and I would be knocking on doors left and right.
Yeah.
I think that's where it starts for a lot of us. Why are you at it? Why are we doing it?
Yeah. So maybe Alex's hobby is home decorating, and he does a home decorating podcast, and he talks about blinds, and maybe he'd like to make some money. Yeah. Well, maybe he's filthy rich. Maybe Alex has got, him and Elon Musk are smoking marijuana on that Joe Rogan show or something, but I don't know. So it's an idea concept. Idea number 3, become an affiliate. Well, what's an affiliate? Well, hey, I use the Rob mouse here on my podcast, and every time I sell a Rob mouse, I get $20. I don't know. You get a commission on it. It's a commission sale. And so there are companies that make a lot of money with small niche podcasts with affiliate income. And let me tell you, it can shock you. It can really shock small little niche areas. Now, if I do a podcast about podcasting, I may say, hey, I got this Blue Yeti microphone here, and if you buy it, I get $10. Well, I love $10, but $10, Libsyn has a affiliate program. You get $5. I mean, it's that thing. So if you have a podcast about a niche area, why not find some place that will pay you a reasonable affiliate fee? For example, Amy Porterfield's got a podcast out in California, San Diego. She has an online course she offers, and the course is $2,000. Okay. She will pay an affiliate $1,000 for everyone who signs up for that course. So Rob can do his podcast with entrepreneurs, and he can say, oh, by the way, Amy's great. She's been doing this for 5 years, and she's got a great program. Why don't you sign up for a course? I'm an affiliate. And then through Rob signs up and you get $1,000. All of a sudden, I'd rather have that than $5 for a microphone sale. And so there are affiliate programs that can be very, very profitable. Now, in my world, there's different types of software as a service affiliate programs you can sign up for. And there's different ones out there, and they have a recurring fee of like $17 a month. And so if you can refer someone to someone, I think there's different. I have some names out there, but if you can get like $10 a month, it's not that much. But wait a minute, if you have 50 people telling you $5 a month or $10 a month for a year, all of a sudden that can be very, very good. So think about reducing stress on your number of downloads, because you don't need. I mean, for Amy, how many you need? 2 or 3 a month? That's not a little, another stream of income. That's fine. I mean, so think of different ways of affiliates, not necessarily the $5 affiliate club. It's not even worth the juice is not worth the squeeze. And so there you go, Rob. So there's a money maker for you, huh? Amy Porterfield plays half. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a video course. So who cares? She has 10 people. She has 20 people. Well, if it adds another one, who cares? I'll pay Rob half too.
Does anybody know Doug Sandler? Doug Sandler runs a program like that. He actually was a client of mine, worked on a book, but the podcasting really interested him. And he immediately moved into creating his videos and PDFs on a self-paced podcast program. I don't know what he generates from it, but he sure advertises a lot. Yeah, but it's interesting. But the affiliate program is interesting. Can I just push it? Chad, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I see you as one of our other really grizzled vets here. So that's meant nicely. So I'd love to hear your feedback on some of the things we're hearing here.
I feel like our podcast is so niche and small. You can't help but, sorry, John, but look at numbers and want to be, I want to be in the 1%.
I know.
And I hear everything you're saying, but it's hard to wrap your head around those numbers because, the numbers are the thing, right? And I just want to grow and I want everybody to listen and love it. But I have to admit to myself, it's a niche podcast, it's not for everybody. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't think we'd be chasing ads anytime soon, but I need to think more about the audience and who the audience is and what value that might have to a company. I've got all these animal activists, right? Or, a few hundred of them anyway, and they're all activists. Who is that valuable to? What companies is that valuable to, right? So,
there's creative people out there that can much smarter. They can just figure it out. And I've seen it in so many different ways. I mean, the obvious thing for me is like a podcasting studio or hardware and everything, but it's just amazing how creative people. So don't flip out if you're not getting as many downloads as you want. I think there's ways. So, by the way, there's a good setup for the word ad. That's number 4. Ads.
How many of these are there, by the way?
Huh?
How many of them? Is it 5?
Think of. Okay.
Roll on, Gilroy. Roll on, and try not
4.
to use me in every example. I'm getting very frustrated by that. Pick on somebody else.
You're a professional speaker. You got to have something to hang your hat on. There's 5 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4 is ads. Okay. I guess this is what, back in the day, there used to be these things called magazines, and you'd sit in an airport and read a magazine, and you'd advertise in it by cost per thousand CPM. And so Time Magazine would be $50 CPM, and then I guess Business Week would be another, and that's how advertising agencies would structure campaigns. And that's how they used to do A/B tests, by the way. They'd have the blue Ford in one magazine and the green Ford in the other, and to see what sold. And then they just have ads for the green car. And so they take this concept of magazine advertising cost per thousand applies to podcasting. And so if you look at companies that pay for ads, and there's a lot of numbers out there, you can go up to Alex and go, hey, Alex, well, why don't you pay me $100 and you can advertise my podcast? So you can make up whatever number you want. Hey, Marilyn, give me $500 and we'll give you a mid-roll read. So if you can get away with it, poof, go for it. Fine. Now, if a company's going to contact you, they're going to say, look there, David, here's the deal. We pay $25 per an ad if you got 5,000 downloads. If you don't, I'm not interested. And so I guess I buy the ad and you get 25 times 5,000, which is $125 for a mid-roll read. Now, is the juice worth the squeeze for $125? If you had a pre-roll, mid-roll, and end-roll read, that would be three of them. Still $375. I don't know. I mean, there's ways to leverage a podcast, even with a niche audience that may be hard. Now, you may like the ad formula, and you can't do it. But so that's, I'm just not. I'm not happy with the ad formula. I don't like the ads on my blog. I don't like the ads on YouTube, and I think it'd be much more profitable to just pursue other options. So that's my ad pitch. I've never run ads. I've never paid for ads, although I'm thinking about paying for ads in other podcasts. I think it's a wonderful way to advertise a podcast is on someone else's podcast. And if I can get it for $25, well, I think it's good for an advertiser, but for the person, the talent, the one sweating everything, I don't know.
Hey, wait. That's like wine. Let that one breathe for a moment.
Yeah, think about that.
That was a really interesting comment you just made. Paying for an ad on somebody else's podcast that is getting the 50,000 downloads. I'm swirling that one around right now. I like that.
That's
idea.
The way to do it. Because people who listen to one podcast listen to 4 or 5. And so I was listening to Alex's podcast and he talked about Chads, and I'm signing up for Chads. I tell you, it's very powerful. And if you can do a live mid-roll read, if you could pay for a live mid-roll read, whew, great. If you'd like to pursue that, I have some contacts in the advertising industry. We can come in and talk about that and do a whole show on it if you want. And how to pick the show, how to pay, what a campaign is, what to say, what the call to action should be. There's advertising agencies that now, because it's becoming a mature industry, they're getting more and more able to describe exactly what an ad is. And so it's there's a lot of work involved in putting together a podcast. I mean, you got to get the guests, you got to do this, you got to edit, blah, 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 blah. So if it's fun, it's fun. And I mean, now I don't think it's your podcast number one, but maybe 6 months in, consider advertising and test it and see how it works. I mean, I don't put an ad like on the Washington Post. I mean, have Alex do a mid-roll read at his podcast. Oh yeah, I get my carpet from Marilyn's Carpets. Oh yeah, oh great. I didn't know Marilyn had carpets, and you go to her website. Yeah. So that's my ad pitch. So Rob, you're a podcaster, so you got talent.
Idea. The topic today is perfect, and I love everything that you're sharing. So I'm soaking it all in, because I'm now at the point in my podcast where I'm feeling the stress. I want to get those numbers, and sort of like Chad said, it's sort of like there's a little chicken and an egg thing between what you're saying, but there's also a critical mass that you have to develop based on what your audience is. And you could say that, I look at it and say, maybe this is a for-profit business, maybe it's a passion project. I don't know, but when I look at successful businesses, very few successful businesses went into business undercapitalized. And if we are going to be successful, you need to make the necessary investments to drive what you need to drive. So, if you're going to attract new guests, maybe some of those guests are going to be attracted to the numbers that you're able to show them. Well, if you need to be able to show them numbers, you need to be able to make that upfront investment to make that happen. If you're not totally a niche, I mean, you know, I think we're all somewhere between, not quite niche, but not quite, you know, mainstream for everybody. And ideally, you want to reach as many people as you possibly can. So I love the idea of advertising on other podcasts, because you already know you have an audience, or you already know that they like that type of product.
You know, if you're starting off and you don't got no money and you're eating ramen noodles, I mean, maybe Alex could swap mid-roll reads on Rob's show and do that for a month and test it out. I mean, that's a way to start off and test out a mid-roll read. I've heard people swapping like that. And the other thought I had is that when you said about maybe companies don't want to go because you don't get many downloads, I just launched a podcast a month ago, and I have a call tomorrow with Accenture. They want to get on. I just recorded an interview with Boz Allen. And so there are companies contacting me to get on my show, and I've got like 40 downloads or something. I don't even know how many downloads I have. And so just because they have 40 or 50 downloads, they're not going to screen you out. They, at least from my experience, is these bigger companies will call me and want to get on. And
I'm going to do an advertisement for David for a moment. And David, I'm speaking to you almost figuratively, not literally, but I get a lot of that, but not on the podcast, but I get a lot of pretty big size clients that come to me, and they come to me because when they get to my website, when they get to whatever they're seeing, although I may not have a zillion downloads, it sure as hell looks like I do.
Right.
I do not cut
Yes.
corners on pieces like that. And I mean, just a 20-second story, but 20 years ago when I redid my phone and I in my office, and at that point I bought this Panasonic equipment, cost me $1,000. It had 100 mailboxes and auto attendants and everything. And the rep who sold it to me said, "You're the only one like this. It's crazy. It's like you got 500 people working here." And I went, "Yeah, exactly. I don't want to sound like I'm in my garage." And I thought that was one of the greatest buys I ever had, because every time that phone rang, a client was under the impression they were dealing with a big size company, and I was going to provide just like a big size company. You move that off the phone to the other things we do. Let's look at what does the website look like for somebody who is getting 10,000 downloads a day? That's what I want mine to look like, you know?
So Alex, here's my numbers. I just pulled them up. Launched a podcast, I think in mid-March, 89 downloads. That's all I got. I got big companies contacting me. So maybe it's a good website, maybe it's reputation.
What's your objective? I mean, if your objective is to monetize it, and you know what you're selling to a particular company, then there are ways to monetize everything.
Well, that's a Rob question, and I'll answer it. I have a very unusual profit model for my podcast. What I do is I'll take a CEO like John Higginbotham. He's the CEO of Blue Ridge Networks. I'll get him on the show. We'll do a great job. I'll send out 25 tweets. I'll do a video. I'll do an audiogram. I'll go on Facebook. I'll send it to my email list, and it'll be picked up, and he'll get a lot of publicity. Then I'll say, "Hey, let's meet for lunch or a coffee." So I get a coffee with him and go, "Well, geez, John, how can I help you? What do you need? Recruitment issues? What do you need? You need to meet someone? I mean, I've done 730 Govey, and I know lots of people. How can I help you?" And then he'll say something, and then I'll direct him to a company that can help him. And what my model is that I direct him to the company, and the company pays me. And so let's say he goes to the Chad Cisneros event company. And so what's your problem, Mr. Higginbotham? Well, I want to put together an event in the fall. Well, tell you what, I work with Chad. Why don't you go to Chad's company? So he goes to Chad's company. There's a $40,000 event in the fall, and I ask for a commission based on that. So that's my model. Pretty simple model. And it's all I do is helping people. You know, I'm making sure John, it sounds great. He's got a great podcast interview. You go to my site. It's a great site, a good picture of him. It's got clips. I've got audio, and he's very willing to. And so if I have 10 CEOs, maybe I can help out 2 of them, and maybe I can help out 8 of them. But I'm gonna sure try. So
Yeah.
That's my business.
David has his hand up in the air.
Yeah.
What's up, Dave?
Yeah. So one option that I throw out here is that there's big data providers that have audience databases. I'll just throw off some. I'm looking at a list now. Business podcast listeners. They've got 203 million people. Conservative podcast listeners, liberal podcast listeners, listeners to podcasts on road trips, listens to podcasts while exercising, news podcast listeners, self-development podcast listeners. Self-development, it's like 266 million. Sports podcasts, Spotify podcast listeners, all sorts of. So let's see, news, weather, and podcasts.
We got the hang of it. What are we doing with it?
Yeah. So anyway, so the data is out there. Big data is out there. So anyone that wants to promote a podcast to a specific like segment,
go for it. Yeah.
There's the data available there, and everyone's got their devices everywhere they go. I mean, you're either looking at a website or you've got your mobile phone, your mobile app, and there are ads on all of them. Yeah. And there's ad networks that allow you to tap into these big data groups.
You know, if you want to pursue this, Rob, I know some people at AdvertiseCast, and maybe I can get a speaker in for next month, and we could do a whole hour on advertising. I can ask. And
what do you all think of that? That sounds great to me. What do you think? Yeah,
I get someone. I know people. Okay, number 5. I want to do this before I leave.
John, I'll only jump in and comment on David's comment. I just think about, you know, the gold rush back in the 1800s. More money was made selling shovels than it was mining gold. So maybe if we really want to monetize this, we should figure out how to sell advertising.
Oh, they are. AdvertiseCast is. Number 5, and I got to end with number 5, is that charge people to be on your podcast. What? There's a guy named John Lee Dumas, Enterprise on it. He charges $5,000 to be in his podcast. Well, that'll take off a lot of stress. I've never had the boldness to ask for payment for something like that. But if you're bold, I mean, why not ask? All I can say is no. So that'll take away. That's the toss away number 5. So those are my 5 ways to take away stress from podcasting. But I can get a hold of people from AdvertiseCast and see if they'll jump on. I don't see why not. So be fun for next month.
Next month. Yeah. I love that idea. Everybody's okay with that.
Then I can shut up and let everyone else ask questions, because he can. And I think what David was talking about was vertical markets. And so if Alex can buy podcasts that just do home decorating and pay for ads on those home decorating podcasts, and then Chad can do one for transmission repair, and Marilyn can be one for tree trimming. And so these vertical markets are great. And maybe we can hear from these guys at AdvertiseCast how and why and all the magic. So.
You know, I know it freaks everybody out to hear, 5,000 be on my show and stuff like that. And of course, we keep circling back to, well, if you have a gazillion downloads every day, you can make an argument for $5,000 to be on the show. But anyway, it's just interesting. I may have told you one time I was coming out with a sales book, and I got through Doug Sandler, of all people, connect me with a guy named Jeffrey Gitomer. If you're in the business world and particularly sales, there you go. The Little Red Book of Selling, etc. Big time author, New York Times bestseller. He connected me on the phone with the guy. Guy wanted he's $10,000. He'd write the foreword to my book, and I'm bringing it up because my first thing, and he said, and you get on my podcast, then I'll put it up on the website for a week or whatever. And I went, $10,000. That's, and then I thought and backed up and I thought, what am I going to be paying a publicist? How many books would sell with Jeffrey Gitomer's name on the front of that book? Every time they Google Jollis Gitomer, they might get Jollis half the time. So there isn't, and kind of go back to that. If somebody's got a bazillion downloads and wants to charge a few $1,000s for that ad, think about, is that going to, how far that'll move the needle? I ended up almost pulling the trigger. I was ready to go with Gitomer, and my publisher stopped me and ended up getting somebody in-house because they wanted to protect that money and use it in other ways for promotion of the book. Which was fine, but mysteriously they found me. I don't know if anybody knows Brian Tracy, but Brian Tracy did the forward, and we didn't have to pay Brian, but it opened up my eyes to don't get freaked out about numbers. Look at what the bottom line is. I know publicists, they'll get you on the Today Show with a book. How many books sell on the Today Show in your 2.5 minutes? Like 20. Nothing.
Really?
People do not buy books who are watching the Today Show. Get into Forbes magazine. Those people buy books. So pushing back to David again, I think it's finding out where, which is the right market for us. But yeah, that's a big misconception. You get on the Today Show. It's very impressive for your friends and family. You can always say I was on the Today Show, but watch the interview with the authors, how fast they go, where, and it's done.
But Oprah sold books.
What's that?
Wasn't Oprah the queen of that? I mean, if she
Oprah's a different story. Yeah, the Oprah effect. Yeah, but not the Today Show. We all wanted to be on Oprah. In fact, Jealous was actually in queue to be on Oprah with a book called The Way of the Road Warrior, and she stopped her show. But I had already been vetted out and was ready to go. Another story. Okay. Let's fire some questions at Gilroy. That's the game now. Go ahead, Marilyn. You're up.
So 2 questions. One is really quick. John, when you went through the 5 things, I had noted the first one is ads, because you were talking about numbers and people wanting to advertise, if you had big numbers. So then your number 5 was ads. So what was number 1?
Number 1 is corporate. You go to a company and you go, hey, Alex, pay me to do your podcast.
Okay.
Number 2 is getting a sponsor. Number 3 is affiliate. Number 4 is ads. And number 5 is charge. I should write this up as a blog post, I guess. I mean, I just wrote this down.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can I do another question?
Of course.
Okay. So this has been fascinating. So I see, John, you took the angle of, reducing stress about podcasting based on how are you going to monetize it? If you're doing all this work podcasting, are you going to make any money out of it? So that's one angle. But what about, how do you all who have podcasts, which I don't have, how do you deal with this other stress about a podcast, like how it reinforces your personal brand, who it is that it's going to resonate with, what is it you're going to say that really offers value? Those sources of stress without considering money. So I'd like to just hear from all of you who
maybe I'm, my wife yesterday called me a Cro-Magnon. Maybe I'm a Cro-Magnon that I never thought of that. So, I guess I'm a Cro-Magnon there.
Yeah, I guess if you don't think about it, you don't stress about it.
No, I never thought about my brand or any of those topics at all. Every interview I do, I try to come up with something original, new that would be a benefit to my audience, and they walk away knowing something new. So I did.
You got to have, I'll jump in a little bit, just a couple of thoughts. Because I just did my 135th. So I'm climbing the mountain slowly. Again, back to the art form. I had a guy on yesterday that was pitched by a publicist, from mailroom to CEO, 24 years, kind of an interesting story. Oh my God, he was like watching paint dry. He was really not a great guest. He had a great resume. He had a great bio. But I like to think, and this might be the seminar leader in me, I like to think that's when we're at our best. When we take somebody like that and make them as interesting as we can. And I always find my energy actually picks up when somebody's energy goes down, because somebody has to be up in this conversation. And if I don't pay attention, I'm going to go, circling down the drain with this guy. But I thought at the end of the day, it was a nice piece. One other thing, and I'll shut up on this. I want to tell you, again, I crowbar everything back to books because that's my world. Most people who get my book actually don't read the book, but they like holding the book. They like knowing that they were talking to an author. That's part of the feeling for them of just knowing it. And so I look at the podcast, and I'm not brokenhearted when I think, not so sure everybody is listening to every episode, but I think that it adds to brand and credibility that we have a podcast. So that's how I reduce my stress. I'm not really obsessing. One, I think I'm trying to get good guests, but when one limps in, we'll work twice as hard. And two, not everyone's going to listen to every word that we say, and that's okay also. So that helps me just a little bit.
Thanks.
And it got quiet.
I'm just thinking about things of stress that I've never, it's like starting with a microphone. It never dawned on me that some people are reluctant to actually speak in a microphone, and people are. And it's like, I don't know, it's like opening up a door for me, but there are people that are very wary. And I've been in radio studios with people that they're so nervous, they can't write anything down. Their hand is shaking. And so that may be a stress for some people too, just the stress of starting a podcast, what to say, and maybe having your guest overcome that stress. I've had some very nervous people in front of me. Whew, yeah. I don't know why. Pretty easy going, I think. I guess I have no stress, huh?
Hey, John, quick question. I was taking notes, and I want to know sort of a this or that question. Sponsor versus advertiser. Can you just in 2 sentences tell me the difference between the two?
Yeah. A sponsor is that Alex says, okay, John, I'm going to give you $4,000 a month, and you talk about my podcast as a sponsor for 6 months. Okay. That's different from Marilyn is going to buy an ad at $25,000 for $25 for 1,000, and she's going to run that for a month and pay me. So it's whole different. It's way different from that. I think of a corporate sponsor. And so when I ask for a lot of money for corporate sponsors, hey, today brought to you by David Huff Software. And our sponsor, David Huff Software, rather than having that mid-roll read, the pre-recorded mid-roll read, I hate those. They're just so weak. And it gets in the middle of the show. And I think, well, maybe when we have advertised cast on, we'll ask them and say, is it a live mid-roll read, or is it a pre-recorded mid-roll read? And how do you pay for that? And what happens to the ad if it sits? What about 6 months from now? Is it part of the podcast? What about 8 months from now? What about a year from now? Is it pulled? There's a whole lot of things. So I think a sponsor is a bigger, major backer of the show, partner even, and an advertiser just some small little, an ad here, an ad there. That's what I think.
Okay. And how about finder fee versus affiliate program?
I think different words, huh? Finder fee.
That's the words I use. Somebody finds me a seminar and says, I got a client, I can connect you, whatever. I pay a finder fee.
I think for an affiliate, it's more in my world of software as a service. It's almost automated, and they have specific programs for it. You can go to a website. What is your affiliate program? And you don't even have to interact with anyone. I think a finder's fee is always like, hey, Alex, my real estate agent is Chad Cisneros. Why don't you work with him? And he buys a house through Chad. I think that's more of a referral fee. I think with affiliate income, it can be automated. And if you're a software as a service, if you have 100 people who signed up for ConvertKit and they're paying $20 a month, that's just a cash cow. That's a great thing to have. So I think that's a finder's fee. Finder's fee seems more personal, doesn't it? I think.
Guess. I just never heard of affiliate program. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
It's a big world, and lots of money. And David knows there's lots of money being made in that affiliate world. Whew. I'm shocked. $20,000 a month.
If we're looking to advertise, does anybody? I mean, if we're looking to advertise on other podcasts, does anybody have any recommendations of how to go about that? Any sites that you go through?
Yeah, I would call up the podcast host and go, hey, Rob, what would you charge? That's the easy way to do it. AdvertiseCast will do it for you if you want, but I can make a list and just contact people. But then again, I think Rob and I come from this funny background of course you're going to make 100 calls. Well, of course you're going to do that. A lot of people may feel uncomfortable.
I didn't know if there was a centralized service. I mean, I didn't know if you could go through
AdvertiseCast. AdvertiseCast is a company that's owned by Libsyn that provides suggestions for where to advertise. And
Mr. Gilroy, I believe you mumbled about 30 minutes ago. I'll make that available, or I can.
Yeah. I'm gonna do it.
Okay. So how about we'll put that. I'll put it up on Facebook. We're going to put this video on Facebook as well. But or if you want, I can just send it out to. See, if I send it out in Meetup, it goes out to 300 people. 290 never made this call. It's not that I'm punishing the 290. I don't know if they want it or not. Yeah. Just trying to figure out, maybe we can, John, how about just put your, this is an idea. John, why don't you put your email address in the chat area? And if anybody wants this list, hit Gilroy up. He'll send it to
Yeah.
you. Is that okay?
Sure. Let me put it up here right now.
Okay, good. Other questions? Fabulous presentation, John. Really.
Yeah, and if anyone's looking for an affiliate program, you just do a Google search on your niche plus the word affiliate program, and you'll find it, balloon twisting affiliate program, and there'll be balloon twisting affiliate programs that you can refer
Rob's
people to.
Goldfish podcast. Whoa, goldfish. Yeah.
There's the whole memory shtick about goldfish. It's a fascinating topic, I believe, for about a minute.
Yeah.
My guy, that guy yesterday was like a goldfish. He I won't tell you who he is, so I'm not trashing anybody. Other questions for Mr. Gilroy, or just and I will tell you this: I am for the group. I'm buying John a cup of coffee, but we're gonna compensate him for today's work. It was really a good presentation. Real great job.
I would like to hear from Sandy and Cheryl. We haven't heard from these folks. And Sandy, tell us what your goals are and how we can structure some meetups in the future that might help you, Sandy.
I'm a new podcaster. I have 15 episodes. And so I'm kind of still just feeling my way through. I don't have a side hustle. I don't have a business. I don't have any courses. I don't have any products. That's not to say that I'm not working on perhaps having some of those things down the road. Prior to having my podcast, I was a food and travel writer. And I traveled all over the world, and I had a video series online. I did a lot of television segments, and then the pandemic came. And so after a decade of going places, there were crickets. I mean, for the last couple of years. So I started this podcast during that time to kind of get through it. And then now I'm developing a second podcast, which will be about food, travel, and adventure for people who need something to look forward to. And it's going to be called Another Great Place. So that one, I think, because of my experience in food and travel, I'll be able to monetize that model.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm working on now. That's where I'm getting my stress from now, is the fact of trying to create a successful podcast model.
Well, good.
Good. Well, welcome. Did you get some ideas today?
I did. It's been very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Well, come back. We meet once a month. So keep an eye out for us.
I will. Thank you so much.
Good.
So
good.
Cheryl, we haven't heard from you. You want to pick
Sure.
on me or tell me to straighten up my act?
I am a soon-to-be podcaster, recording episodes and editing them now. And so I'm not yet stressed about numbers, but I really don't think that I will be, because, yeah, my goal is the credibility of having a podcast. I am one of those authors that made it onto the shelves at Barnes and Noble that sold, yes, less than 10,000 books. And I and a co-author have another
Good job.
book. Yeah, I made it on the shelf. But that doesn't last, if you don't sell. So anyway, I and a co-author have a book proposal. We went all the way through 6 months of conversations with the publisher last year. And at the end, they said, yeah, your writing's great, but we don't think you can sell this book. You need more of a platform. And I just don't want to be, my goal is never to be a social media influencer kind of person. But I like the credibility of a podcast, and I'm hoping that would build some more platform for us.
Just a note to self, not to spiral off, but of course I always get eager when I'm talking to an author. My social media platform isn't quite what it should be, but because I actively speak for a living, that will turn the heads of publishers. So you don't, as long as you're willing to get out and talk, that moves books. That's something that will.
We've both done that, and
Yeah.
still the numbers of our speaking engagements wasn't high enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Cheryl, I think the word you're looking for maybe is community. That's a lot better than influencer, or I don't know what it is.
Right.
But if you have a community, and there's so many small niche communities and general big size communities, it's just and actually, if you could become a community leader and go back and forth, it's because you get topics and ideas. It's just great. So
I'm
been
much more
involved in-
interested in building community. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I've had several communities like that, so that's all good. Bella, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah, so I do not have a podcast. I'm just trying to lay a good foundation before jumping in. Trying to see if it's worth my time. I don't, I was debating whether a podcast was even relevant because, everything looks towards the visual media like YouTube and things of that nature. I'm a little bit of an introvert. I mean, I can speak fine and I can engage if I want to, but I'm realizing now that unfortunately, the way the world's going, if you want to get anywhere, you're going to have to develop some type of social media foundation. And so, I'm trying to see whether I could find a topic that align with my interests and whether it's going to be somewhat profitable. I mean, it doesn't have to be like super duper
Right,
lucrative,
yeah.
but something that's going to be worth my time and energy. So I have a couple ideas. My only fear is that I'm worried that the market is oversaturated. I mean, I don't want to do something that is not going to get the interest of people if there's already too many people doing it. So
Well,
how
Bella,
do I?
Bella, there's a billion blogs out there, and there's probably I think there's 2 million podcasts, and really only 300,000 are very active. So this is a green field. So if you're thinking about podcasting, it's brand new. It's not oversaturated at all. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of boost you up a little bit, Bella, with that, which is, again, if I started thinking how many books are out there, it would depress me. But you can shave off 90% of them practically of people that are kind of self-published and wanted to write about their trip to Tahiti or whatever it was, or just aren't taking it seriously. I find that in the podcast world as well. If you're willing to roll up your sleeves and just do some work and stay consistent, that's my goal, which is, every Monday and Wednesday, there's something appearing from me. It's a marathon. Just keep going. You already distanced yourself from just the vast majority who put up 3 or 4 or 8 or 9 and said, I don't know. If you go to a website sometime, and 90% of them have a blog pin, okay, a blog menu. Pull the blog, go look at the blog. I do it all the time. And you'll see, I do have a blog. Haven't written on it since 2016, but they do have a blog. It was fun for them. They wanted to have a blog. They wrote 3 in a row, they put out way too many, way too fast. They burned out and they were done in 3 months. So I use that as encouragement. I use that to tell myself, just if this is what you want, and find that topic, Bella, that really speaks to you. If you have something that really speaks to you and you're willing to just run the marathon, not the sprint, then the world's your oyster. Then your piece of art will be just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, John has got a little bit pontificating there, but
Ooh, I
Mr.
like the
Gilroy,
wordplay.
let's not bury the lead. We are indebted to you, sir, and we love the idea of kind of maybe going a little bit deeper and bringing that guest in that you were talking about. You and I will.
I can ask. All I can
Yep.
do is ask.
We'll talk about it, and but we'll do it again second week of May on a Thursday. And just really glad everyone was able to come in and share some thoughts and ideas. Great job, everybody.
A lot of fun. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Pax
Thanks.
Nice to
vobiscum.
see you all.
Pax vobiscum, my friends.